thanks, sir. Thank you very much for inviting me. First of all, let me welcome again to be accepted into Western's graduate program. We are one of the best universities in Canada, so you must be very good. But I'm not sure if you know your main duty here as a graduate student is to do research. I'm not sure if you know what is research or how to conduct effective research. So I hope in this short talk I'll give some answers to those questions. So first of all, maybe most of you have just obtained your bachelor's degrees. So here I come in the world, you are very excited. And you are highly ambitious. So right now your ambition is win Nobel Prize. Right? Let's say you're a PhD student, and then maybe over the years it will be something like this. So soon you become revolutionize your field, and then later get a job at top university, later get a job, and later attend a conference in Podunk, Maine. Happy hours, here I come. And we do not hope to see this happen. Alright, so how to prevent this to happen, I would like to suggest to you this book. It's called Crafting Your Research Future. And it's authored by me and my co-author, Professor. It may be that supernatural thing that Chris mentioned. Well, some of you say, wait a minute, Dr. Ling, you're already laughing, right? Are you trying to sell your book here? We are smart, you know, we're graduate students, right? Well, I want to tell you that as a graduate, as a student at Western, you can download this book free. Okay? Of course, I won't stop you if you want to go to Amazon to buy one. In fact, at the end, there will be some free books, printed book, giving out at the back later. Right? So, this book, even though it's written mostly for science and engineering students, but most of the principle is also applied to all disciplines. Alright, so let's go to basic first, graduate studies. Right? First of all, I want to reiterate that the main purpose here for you guys is to learn to do research under the supervision or mentor of your professor, of your supervisor. And let's look forward first. After you graduate, if you are a master student, then you will become almost like a part-time researcher. You may take some kind of various positions, professional positions and so on, in various companies and organizations. As a PhD student, you may actually become a full-time researcher after you graduate. And you may become professors, scientists, scholars, etc. in large companies. But this still begs the question, what is research? Well, to do research is to make novel and significant contributions to knowledge. So you say, what's that difference between undergraduate study and the graduate study I'm doing here? Well, in undergraduate study, you mostly receive knowledge. You're learning, you're receiving knowledge. So it's like input to you. But for the graduate study, you're making contributions. It is output to you. That's why I think a lot of you will get a scholarship, will get some fundings from your supervisor or from the graduate school because you are receiving money because you are making something, contributions. So that's the main difference. Now there are two keywords. One is novel. Novel also means new, original, innovative, creative, etc. In academics or in research, novel usually means that it is not published yet in peer-reviewed venues, such as conference and journals. Why it is peer-reviewed? Well, peer-reviewed means that your publication is reviewed and critically reviewed by people, researchers in the same field. It's not just like publishing a newspaper or newsletter. That doesn't count. Okay? Well, peer-reviewed because we want to hold a very high standard. The research result you publish must be rigorous, must be true, must be sound. So therefore, it is peer-reviewed. And so if it's not published yet, it's novel. The other side is significant, or could also be called impactful, or potentially impactful, useful, or beneficial. Okay? And what does it mean? Well, usually it means that at the time when you finish your research, your work, your result should be better than the current best, than the state of the art, than the current published result. Okay? In future years, maybe your work could be judged as significant because it has been cited or used by many other researchers or papers. And if your research result, like the research in your thesis, is significant and novel, then you would try to publish it in peer-review venues. And after it is published, then it is no longer novel. Other researchers will have to cite your work and keep on going. So you see that doing research is this cycle of finding new novel knowledge and significant knowledge and try to publish it, and other people will move ahead and even do more novel and significant research. So I want to emphasize that both novelty and significance are important. You cannot miss one of them. So let me ask you a query, right? Can you think of something that is significant but not novel anymore now? Can you think of anything? Okay, I heard something. Sure, you can say that's probably very easy. Anything that has already been published or known in the textbook is significant but not novel, right? I would like to just use an example, e to mc squared, right? Right now, if your thesis is to derive e to mc squared again, I'm sure you will not pass the defense. Unless if you have an ingenious proof. For example, this proof. In order to prove it, you try to prove e to ma squared, you fail. E to mb squared, you fail. So they say, therefore, e must be equal to mc squared. I'm sure you will not pass that proof, that defense either. But can you think of something that is novel but not significant? Well, when I gave this talk some time ago at some other university, a student raised his hand and said, I think my master thesis is like that. I hope that doesn't happen to you. So, I'd like to give an extreme example. How about this thesis title? It was actually typed out by a monkey on the keyboard. It's a random string. It's novel. I checked in Google that nothing is there yet. But is it significant? Is it useful? Potentially useful? We really cannot say. Now, one thing that is very important is that novelty and significance are not black and white. Okay? Both novelty and significance are all graded. Well, Einstein's grade, of course his work was very novel and very significant at that time. And all what we are trying to do, including me, your supervisor, and you, is try to become more novel, try to become more significant to make your thesis work. Okay? So it's graded. So I know what my next two books will be. 50 Shades of Novelty. 50 Shades of Significance. All right. So after seeing all this, let's look at two ultimate goals of graduate study. The first goal of master or PhD students or thesis is in an important, albeit narrow field, that is your thesis topic. You should be the best in the field, novel and significant. Of course, you are the best in the field, international. And this is especially important for PhD students. So let me show you this as an illustration. So here the x-axis is the area, the y-axis is the expertise. And you see this line here called the current best, or the state of art, the published work so far. If you are a master's student, maybe 2 years, thesis masters, your curve may look like this. The first year you took some course, you take some course, and you pick up some area. And the second year you try to break the ground, to find something novel and then you could actually, this will be then your thesis, and you can also try to publish this in your 1 or 2 papers. Another model, which is also acceptable, is something like this. Even though you may not break ground, but you actually connect all different areas together. You make new insight into surveying, into connecting different areas. You have a critical review. So for that, you could also publish maybe some survey or review paper on some new fields. If you are a PhD student, your 4 years might look like this. In the first year, you actually explore a few different areas to see which one is more interesting to you. And in the second year, you put in more effort. The third year, you start to publish, and the fourth year, you publish more. Okay? And this, of course, this part of over the best is your thesis. And you will publish several papers for that. Now, you will see that when this curve is moving, there is something called area under the curve. The area under that curve, and you can see it is improving all the time. What does area under the curve represent? It actually represents your effort. You have to put in a lot of time and effort to push that curve up. Actually, I'd like to quote some advice from current and prospective graduate students from University of Texas. It says that a full-time graduate student would devote 60 hours per week to coursework and thesis and research, and that's quite normal. So forget about the clubs and parties. Now, some of you may not agree. Say that, is it possible at all that I can spend little effort but still break the ground? Is it possible that I can do this? See? I want to tell you that it is impossible. Just forget about this, right? I want to show you another way of doing PhD thesis, which I think are called poor PhD thesis. How about this student, for example? He or she did spend a lot of effort. You see, the area under the curve is large. But the problem of this is that there's no focus. This student may produce n master thesis, but n master thesis is not equal to 1 PhD. There's another poor model of PhD thesis. You spend 4 years, you produce a curve like this. Now you do break the ground, you do publish papers, but you publish in n different topics. The problem of this is that you are not well established in one. We rather you publish 3 papers in the same topic rather than publish 3 papers in 3 different topics in your thesis. Okay? So that's very important also to remember. The second goal is that you want to become an independent researcher. This has been also mentioned earlier. Take initiative, be independent. Well, I like to use this to illustrate. So here is again 4 years, and the other is the independence. Now in 4 years, you want to be something like this. That is, by the end of the 4 years, you know how to do research, you know how to carry out research, you know how to write papers all by yourself. And your supervisor's effort will be something like this. That would be ideal. That would be great. And then usually, at the end of your thesis or PhD thesis, PhD study, you can say you own the area. That is your work. Usually, when my students publish papers, they are always the first authors. They own the work, and they can carry on this work in the future. Now, so this is the great, but we don't want to see this to happen. Okay, this, and then if this does happen, your supervisor's effort and maybe mental health will be like this. All right. So when we talk about researchers and all these things researchers do or you will be doing, actually make me think of another type of people that are also very exciting, but kind of similar to researchers. Who are they? I think they are entrepreneurs. They have many commonalities. For example, they both try to make some novel and significant contributions in knowledge or in products. They both have passions when they do things. They both work very hard. And they are passionate because the result of their effort is that this is my baby. This is my work. And they both treat their hard work as a career, not as like a 9-to-5 job. So therefore they spend time in the evening, they spend time in the weekends, but they like to do it. There are of course some differences. In research, we focus much more on the research side, and the paper is our product. And in the entrepreneur, they usually focus on the development part, and the product is their result. Right? The other thing, of course, we can convert between the two. Right? So for example, if your work is really useful in a way, then you could do a so-called technology transfer. I don't know if you know that, for example, Sergey Brin and Larry Page, they were PhD students from Stanford University. But they quit their PhD program and started Google. They founded Google. Now, if any of my PhD students want to quit their PhD program and start the next Google, I'll be fully supportive. I just want to make sure that the university I will have some shares in. And the other difference is about income. So, as a researcher, as a professor, we start with moderately good income, but it's kind of flattened out. But it's very stable. As an entrepreneur, your income may be like this. So you can see that there are actually a lot of commonality between researchers and entrepreneurs. All right, so there are four, these are the two main goals, right? And to reach that in 4 years, it's not very easy. It's actually very hard. We only have 4 years. So then, what we will do? Well, I will break that down into 3 subtasks. So here again is a successful researcher, and here is a PhD or master, thesis as a milestone, and here is the path. And to achieve these 2 grand goals, I break down into 3 subtasks. One is called find new ideas. You need to have new ideas because you must find something novel. The second step is do solid research. So you want to confirm your idea. And the third step is publish papers, right? As we said earlier, you have to publish peer-reviewed papers in order for other people to know your research. However, to get a master or PhD, usually you don't do that just once. It's actually a more or less an iterative process. For masters, you may iterate just once because time is short. Sometimes you just 1 year. But for PhDs, you will iterate 3 or 6 times. And that's why we need to start writing early, okay, to learn all these skills. And after you iterate this for 3 or 6 times, then your supervisor say, I think you can graduate, and you get your degree, and you go to become a successful researcher. Okay? So the book will have different chapters talking about all these tasks. However, here, I just want to spend a few more minutes to talk about some very, some common misconceptions and mistakes in each of these 3 tasks. I'll just choose one for each. First, finding new ideas. Well, I said earlier that when you try to find new ideas, you must read up first, right, to know what's the state of the art. So therefore, you must read a lot of papers. You will be very soon. There's a very bad approach in reading papers, research papers. That is, you may spend days and weeks trying to understand every detail of a paper. And this approach is bad. Well, that's because reading a research paper is very different from reading textbooks in undergraduate school, in undergraduate study. There, we try to understand the knowledge. Here, we try to understand what they have been doing, what has been done, and we try to surpass it. So therefore, I will recommend that you spend only 30% of the time on trying to understand the main idea and solution of the paper. And you spend the other 70% of the time, or much larger portion, on 2 kinds of thinking. The first one is called creative thinking. You want to be critical. You want to think, what's wrong with this paper? What's wrong with the assumption? What's wrong with the solution? How can I find counterexamples? And then the other part of thinking is called creative thinking. You want to think, what else? How can I do that better? Only when you are used to do these kind of thinkings, then you can become a good researcher that always try to find new ideas and create ideas and carry things out. Now, not only when you do research, you want to have creative thinking and critical thinking, it actually is a good habit to have in daily life. I want to mention there's one very good training that you could do to improve your critical thinking and creative thinking, a fun way. That is when you watch movies. Well, we mentioned some movies. So especially if you watch some science fiction movie. For example, this one, Back to the Future, directed by Spielberg, many years ago. It's an old movie. But the movie made a small assumption about Einstein's special relativity. And then it'll have so many interesting and weird consequences. But when you are watching this movie, you want to think about what's wrong with it. What are the plot holes in the movie? What doesn't fit? Okay. And not only that, you also want to think, how can I do that better? Actually, this movie has a sequel, Back to the Future 2 and 3. Before you watch 2 and 3, you want to think, if I would make a movie Back to the Future 2, how would I do it? And maybe then you could do better than Spielberg. How about this movie? The Ghost. Again, they make a very small assumption, a lot of interesting consequences. What's wrong with this movie? How about this one? The Da Vinci Code. Actually, the novel is much better. But again, you want to think, what's wrong with this novel? Can I find plot holes? How about this one? This movie, Inception, has so many holes, plot holes, that there are holes in the holes. Alright, so not only you want to be critical and creative when you look at other people's work, you also want to be critical to your own work. That's very important. Because then your work will be critically reviewed by other people. So you also want to be critical to your own ideas, results, and papers. Very important. So that's the first part. The second part is that when you're doing research, a common mistake that usually happens is that, well, you may have some new ideas and you may try the idea out, but then the student will come back saying, I don't think the new idea will work. Come on, have another one. Well, a new idea is like a hypothesis, right? Maybe in your undergraduate study, etc., you learn that scientific investigation is to confirm or reject a hypothesis. Is that true? Just confirm or reject, binary, confirm, reject? Well, no, actually. In doing real research, there are actually 3 cases. In the first case, indeed, you can confirm your hypothesis directly. But that's quite rare. Maybe only 10% of the cases. Only 10%. The other 90%, you would fail. You cannot confirm it. Well, there's actually a second case. That is, doing research is also to modify the hypotheses and solutions, and to confirm that modifier. Right? So the initial hypothesis may not be actually true, but if you modify it, change the problem, change the solution, maybe then you can confirm that. And that is probably the most of the situation, 70%-ish. And then doing research is exploring some new territory. So therefore, there is still a chance that you may still fail to confirm the hypothesis. And there are 20% of chance that you may fail to yield any positive result. In this case, you will have to quit. Just like entrepreneurs, they also have a chance of failure. Okay? But you see, it's important to understand this so that instead of having only 10% of success rate, now you will have 80% of success rate. So one question some of you may ask, how long do I stick to it before I quit and switch to a new hypothesis? Well, read a book. Okay. In the third area, writing a research paper, I want to mention another mistake that often comes up by students. That is, I'm the emperor. I'm the emperor. Or I have 2 emperors here. One is Chinese emperor, one is Roman emperor. Well, what does that mean, I'm an emperor? Well, I'm doing a PhD research. It's in the ivory tower, It's theoretical. It's so beautiful, And it is your responsibility to understand my work. And if my paper is easy to understand, it must be too simple. So when you have this kind of thought, then it's very easy that your papers would not be easily understood by reviewers, and it will get rejected easily, and that's bad. So you really want to avoid this kind of wrong thinking. So let me summarize. Again, to do research, you want to make novel, significant contributions, especially like PhD thesis in 4 years. You want to form this knowledge curve. And the second goal is you want to be independent. You want to learn how to do research by yourself at the end. And to achieve these 2 grand goals, you would iterate these 3 tasks. And again, in the book, we'll have detailed chapters on each of these tasks. And if you do these well, you can avoid this happening. And in fact, if you do this really well, being effective and everything, you actually still have a good time. But that'll be next talk. I'm finishing. So again, search the book or go to my homepage, and at the end there will be some free books outside at the back of the room, or the back of the hallway, with my autograph. And if you have questions during your graduate study, please, you're welcome to email me. And at the end, I wish all of you to be a great success in your graduate studies. Thank you.